Something is wrong with Mom. I've always been close to my mother. She has always been the one there for me when nobody else was. She doesn't have a mean bone in her body. We text or call each other every day, and for a few days she was expressing that she had been feeling a little under the weather, so I thought that I would surprise her by showing up randomly since we don't live that far apart. This isn't unusual for me since she loves when I stop by just to chat and visit. She always gives me the biggest hug when I walk through the door. As always, she asks if I'm hungry and offers to make me something to eat, but I had just eaten, so I declined and told her I just wanted to hang out and talk, especially since she's been feeling bad for a few days. I could tell she had a bit of a cough and some congestion, but otherwise she seemed her usual self. She was never the type to be able to sit still, so per usual she was up running around doing chores despite the coughing and making conversation with me. About an hour into our visit she sets the dish down that she was washing and walks over to me to continue our conversation. I thought this was odd because why would she just drop whatever she was already doing to walk over when we could hear each other just fine? I brushed it off because that's really no big deal. At this point I am seated on the couch and she is standing in front of me. We continue to chat, just talking about life and family and everything else. I started to notice at this point she was looking more unwell as the conversation went on. Her gaze became more distant. She was looking at me, but it was more like she was looking through me. I'm a bit of a worrier and tend to jump to the worst conclusions on a moment's notice, so I tried to just continue with our conversation, hoping that what I was seeing was just in my mind or a trick of my imagination, just like I've experienced so many times before. At this point there was no doubt in my mind that something was wrong. Her arms began to just dangle beside her body and she was blankly staring. Not necessarily at me, but through me and to something beyond. I really started to get worried and frantically kept asking her what is wrong and if she was okay. She never responded. Just that blank stare with her arms dangling and glassy eyes fixated on something I had no perception of. I really tried at this point to keep my cool, but I was more worried by the second. I started to feel better because moments after she started making some movement. My relief quickly went away when I noticed her only movement was slowly scanning her head down my body and grinning very heavily. I tried to keep talking to her, but all she was doing was very stoically scanning me with her head and smiling. The more she smiled, the more distorted her features became. At this point she almost became angry, I guess. Her breathing got very intense and her demeanor was almost evil, unlike anything that was familiar to her. She looked back up at me and I noticed whatever I was looking at was not my mother anymore. Her eyes were nothing but white. Her skin had aged terribly. Her smile was unlike anything I've seen her do before. Her mouth opened and let out a sound unlike anything I've heard before. The best I can describe it is a growl slash scream slash hiss slash spit and everything in between. This wasn't my mother. At least not anymore. I got up as quickly as I possibly could and made a run for it to the closest place I thought I could be safe. I am now currently stuck locked in the bathroom and I hear her scratching at the door. I see now why she had been feeling under the weather. I am no longer a mama's boy.